What is going on, everyone? So it is February 26th, and I'm about to go in and get my thyroid panels checked. So the panels that I'm looking to get tested are, back me up if I forget something.
You got it. Go.
T3, T4, TSH, TPO, reverse T3, and I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. And the last time I had my panels done, when was the last time I had my panels done?
Probably close to a year, maybe.
I had it done before that. I think before going into prep, I had them done again. So I started prep I think I had them done in December was the last time I had
it might have been
my panels done, like somewhere around that time frame. But I have been dieting since then, and you know, when you're in a fat loss, when you're in a contest prep, thyroid health is everything. Well, whether you're in a fat loss or not, thyroid health is everything. And the biggest thing that we're looking at this time around for contest prep is making sure that my thyroid is in an optimal place, or at least we're doing whatever we can do to help control the thyroid, and whether that's like supplementing, you know, with like herbs or things like that, and we'll fill you guys in on that. But right now, I'm about to go in and I'm about to get my thyroid panels checked, and once I get those in, we will be reviewing those with you guys and also dropping some knowledge on the thyroid, the health of the thyroid, things that you guys can do, optimal levels of thyroid testing, what panels to get done, and also drop some knowledge on some supplements. So unfortunately, we can't take the camera into the office where I'm going to get my panels done because HIPAA violation or something like that.
Don't allow that kind of thing. But what we will do is that we will be posting lab results, the ones you've had in the past, where we are now,
and we'll explain them and we'll go over them. So we'll see what happens. I am actually coming off of a 2-day refeed. I had my refeeds this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Today is Wednesday. So I also want to see if those refeeds help thyroid. Now, obviously, I'm not going to know if it did or not because I haven't had panels taken prior to the refeed, but I'm hoping in the future of this prep, we can definitely do that, especially the deeper we go, or even pre-diet break, post-diet break.
I mean, right now, as far as where you stand with your current diet and prep, you're not aggressively dieting. You know, things have been kind of coasting, so I don't expect thyroids to have taken a dive. Weight loss has been relatively smooth so far right now. So I think right now getting this baseline is going to give us a good idea to see what we are, quote unquote, pre-prep. And then we're probably going to do some more lab panels, probably two different options. One, we're going to do them at about 90 days, so next 3 months. Or if we start noticing some irregular rates of weight loss and things like that,
or like
that
slow
might be
down.
suspicious of those things being a problem. So
exactly.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
And also, too, in the future, moving forward, I probably will end up getting my sex hormones tested, too, the deeper into prep we go. Because, obviously, as you diet down, sex hormones are affected. So, if I'm running into issues where maybe my cycle is starting to become irregular, or maybe it's only lasting a couple days, or not even showing up, I at least want to know where those are. And I want to keep you guys in the loop with all that so you guys can see the ins and outs. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to get my thyroid panels done, and we'll have the results for you guys, well, on this same video, but technically in a couple days.
Stay tuned.
So here we go. Okay. I got the results back from my panels where I got my thyroid checked earlier this week, and I want to go ahead and cover the panels that I had, cover my ranges, and then also go over the optimal ranges for each one of the hormones that I had that deals with the thyroid. And then of course we'll kind of leave you guys with some insights on getting thyroid tested, and then also some supplementation that you can incorporate, you know, especially for people who diet like competitors, when you gotta push to that extreme, on things that you can implement within your supplementation regimen to help keep the thyroid as healthy as you possibly can. So let's start with looking at these panels and we'll go from there. So the first panel is TSH. So that means thyroid stimulating hormone. And my panel read at 1.923. And the levels, the optimal levels for a healthy thyroid ranges from 0.550 to 4.78. So technically I'm in a good place, right? With my TSH.
Yeah, I mean, your TSH is in a good area. So I just wanted to kind of really say something really quick that you kind of said for the viewers. Okay, so when we talk about optimal range, the normal ranges are what they classify as clinically normal according to lab panels is 0.55 or 0.5 to about 4.5, 4.7 is what they classify as clinically normal. That doesn't necessarily mean that's an optimal range. So I really wanted to just kind of correct you on that. Okay, but I want to keep it rolling because you said what my with optimal ranges were, and you kind of said the lab panels. Okay,
well, because I always think, because this is the thing with TSH, right? It's not one of these things, like if I had like a TSH of like, let's say 5 or 6, like you would think the higher, but you would think the higher the number, oh, that's good. But that's not actually the case in this situation, dealing with TSH specifically, because when you deal with TSH, it's kind of like the lower the number, but within the range, the medical ranges, the more optimal TSH is, correct?
Not exactly. You could still be subclinically low.
Well, I'm saying
on TSH and still be a 0.7, for example, right?
Yeah.
And that's still clinically, within range.
Well, it's not optimal.
It's definitely not optimal. But optimal is usually about 1.4 to about 2.
Okay.
So for your labs at being 1.9, you're in a very good area.
And I guess that's what I'm thinking is optimal in terms of my panel, because the lower my number, the better the TSH.
In this case,
looking at situation.
Yeah. I mean, so for example, to kind of touch bases on like with the lab report that we have, we have a lab report that we have over the last, basically since 2018 for Tarryn. And so, for example, to kind of elaborate on TSH, right? Kind of like what Tarryn said, the higher the number doesn't always yield a better result on a TSH level. Okay, the higher that number outside of that 2.0 level within clinical range still kind of shows that the higher that number, it basically that signal that the TSH is sending, where TSH is basically thyroid stimulating hormone, showing that how much does the body need to produce of the two hormones of your T3 to T4. T3 being the active thyroid hormone and T4 being the inactive. There's a conversion factor of that, okay? If you're not converting those properly, the TSH level continues to produce more and more and more, and that's where that level or that number tends to start increasing and increasing and increasing, okay? So it's a signal saying that you're not converting properly, so it's the pituitary gland is sending out more TSH. Okay, more of what we call thyrotropin, okay? That's the actual central hormone that the TSH is, that's saying, okay, we need to produce more because we don't have enough of the thyroid of the T3, the active form, and it could show some indicators that you may have a high T4, the inactive, but T3 could be low. And that's always an indicator that I think where most people will get lab panels conducted and it's not a complete panel, it doesn't tell you the full picture, right? So hopefully that kind of elaborates a little bit on how TSH kind of impacts some of your other labs we're going to discuss today.
He does this for a living, by the way, guys. Clearly. All right, so next panel. So TSH is in range. My TSH is actually probably the healthiest it's ever been over the last 2 years, because in 2019 my TSH levels were 2.2. And then in 2018, my levels were 4.1.
Yeah.
So that 4.1, that is basically, I mean, yes, I'm still technically in the clinical normal range, but that's really not that healthy in terms of my TSH. So right now my TSH is probably in the best spot that it's ever been in over the last 2 years. So I just wanted to clarify that. All right, so next we're going to be hopping into T3. So my T3 levels are 2.9, and the ranges for a healthy T3 level is 2.3 to 4.2. So I'm good. I'm in range there. Now, what is T3? Why is T3 important?
So T3 is essentially your active hormone, okay, that's circulating in the bloodstream, circulating for a lot of different health aspects, right? But primarily what the focus of the video is for fat loss, right? For metabolism. So T3 being in a good range is very important for someone that's in a calorie deficit, focusing on weight loss, focusing on fat loss, someone that's in maybe contest prep, like in Tarryn's case. So it's important to be in an optimal range to keep that level within an optimal range. Her being 2.9 is right on the cusp of optimal, because optimal is going to be about 3.0 to right around somewhere in the ballpark range of about 3.5 to almost 4 essentially. 4 is a little higher, but
with looking at my panels over the last 2 years, I mean, this is the lowest my T3's been.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I have been dieting. The other 2 times when I had my panels done, I was not dieting.
Absolutely.
So in 2019, my T3 levels was a 3.9.
Yep.
In 2018, my T3 level was a 3.5. And right now, my T3 is reading at a 2.9. So it's a little bit lower than the last 2 years. But that's expected when you are in a calorie deficit.
Yeah, and that's great. It's great that you point that out, because a 3.5 in 2018 and then a 3.4 in 2019 shows that you're in a very optimal level. But it's important to note that you were not in a calorie deficit.
No.
So the stressor of the dietary side of things was not there, versus, like you said, at 2.9, also going into about 3 months of being in a calorie deficit, you're in a really good spot, I think, where being in a 2.9 level of your T3, being 3 months, focusing on weight loss without being in a calorie surplus, or a maintenance at least.
Because if I remember this correctly, even after a week of just being in a deficit, it does affect thyroid levels. They actually will downregulate after just a week of being in a calorie deficit. So you figure that, with a contest prep specifically, I mean, you're in a calorie deficit for a long period of time, for myself, I like to do longer periods of dieting because it doesn't put that pressure on me. And if I'm dieting for a long period of time, that T3 is probably going to be lower, but there are some things that you can do to help, which we'll cover that
in a little bit
towards the end of this. All right, so next is going to be T4. So my T4 levels this time was 1.14. And the clinical levels are 0.89 to 1.76. Now, what is T4? And can you explain my levels here?
Sure. So T4 is your inactive. So you also, just because it's quote unquote inactive, doesn't mean that you want that level to be lower, right? But on the opposite side of things, if you notice that your T3 is not exactly optimal, or you start noticing from frequent lab panels that it's constantly declining, but at the same time of it's declining, you're also noticing that you're chronically, or at least you're noticing that your T4 levels are constantly being higher and higher and higher and higher. The higher that number gets and the lower the T3 gets, it also could show that there's an issue
with the conversion.
And of course, TSH would probably start increasing too, your TSH levels. So all of those things are all correlated together to kind of see the full picture of things. But within that saying that, when you're looking at these lab panels in quote unquote the clinical, they're looking at something on a very, very low level or a very high level. And they're not looking at things on a very optimal level or as things that's functioning in a good place. You can still be completely within range and still be noticing symptoms. You could be symptomatic of things.
So maybe just on the lower end of the ranges.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Yep. So that's why optimal, and it's easy to note that, and everyone differs, right? Tarryn's optimal levels might be completely different from the next person in terms of where symptoms start to develop or not so much.
Of course, yeah. Now, the thing is that my T4 levels are actually in a decent range considering how the levels were over the last 2 years. Yeah. So in 2019, my levels for T4 was 1.07. So clearly I'm a little bit higher now. And then in 2018, it was a 1.20. So, I mean, it's a little less than that now, but hey, I'm still in a good place. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so next is going to be reverse T3. So with my reverse T3 levels, I was at 11.9, and the clinical ranges from 8 to 25. So Gillis, go on with reverse T3. Can you go in depth on what that is? What exactly, like, am I good with my panels?
Yeah.
Go in on that.
So reverse T3 is one of those things not many people will ever get tested or even know about. Whereas reverse T3 is a great indicator. It's a good marker to get done when you're doing a complete thyroid panel, because it checks your conversion factor, and there's optimal levels for that as well.
Conversion between T3 to T4.
Great to point out. Yeah, absolutely. So so that lets you know if you're having an issue with conversion of that T4 to T3, essentially, right? So optimal levels for that is usually going to be around, with reverse, is going to be anywhere between about 11 to about 14, 15. So you're in a great level. You're at 11.9. Yeah. Okay, and if you look at her previous, it was 9.6, a little low, but 14 in 2018 even when we noticed that at that moment TSH was high. Right? So it doesn't always mean that if one thing's bad, everything's bad. There's a lot of moving parts going on there. And so where you're at with the conversion of reverse T3 is in a good spot as well. So,
and that's a good thing. Yeah. That's what you want. Okay, so the next is going to be TPO, or thyroid peroxidase antibodies. Now, I'll let Gillis explain what that is, but first things first, let's go over what my levels are. So my levels for this was a 49, and the clinical ranges for this is less than 60. So I'm in a good place with that. So Gillis, what is TPO?
So TPO stands for, again, thyroid peroxidase. It's an enzyme that your body actually produces. That it's important to get that, because that tells you a couple different things. But more importantly, what I really want to discuss on that is when you're looking at your thyroid peroxidase, that's a good marker also to ensure that you don't have anything autoimmune going on. That,
like Hashimoto's, that's a big one.
Hashimoto's is a big one that you'll start seeing more and more prevalence for in the in clinical aspects of things. That definitely is something. Basically, in short, that your TPO, if it's over those numbers and you have a high level, usually a doctor will then diagnose you based off of multiple symptoms to diagnose you as someone that has clinically having Hashimoto's,
well, hold on, just to back that up. If you have a high number for TPO, basically what that means is that your body is attacking the thyroid.
Exactly.
Because it's telling us there is a autoimmune disease going on.
Yeah, and so that's what autoimmune essentially is. So
Correct.
In this case, thyroid, where those antibodies are now, instead of seeing something that's foreign to your body to attack as a defense mechanism, now it's mistaking your thyroid gland as something foreign, and it's now you're having these issues because your immune system is essentially attacking itself.
Good point.
Yep.
So do you want to go over the thyroid globulin antibodies, or do you...
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to point out is that even though if you notice that, especially over a long period of dieting, you'll see these numbers elevate.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
So It's also something that I don't want it to become a scare for someone who goes get their labs panel done. They've been dieting, focusing on contest prep, or maybe they're just looking to lose weight. They go and get labs checked because someone maybe referred them to go do that, or maybe they just want to get it for their own self-knowledge, and then they notice that TPO is going up, and so now it kind of causes a panic.
And they think they have Hashimoto's or some form of autoimmune
Yeah,
disease.
so it's not that simple. So I would also kind of, just kind of be aware of that TPO can elevate too. Yeah. Now, I will say that if it goes from, like Tarryn, for example, having 49, and you go back 12 weeks later and you have a 400, then yeah, that's a big problem.
There's something wrong. Because my TPO over the last couple of years, it was, so obviously right now it's a 49. Yeah. Back in 2019, less than 28. And then in 2018, again, less than 28. So my TPO levels are a little bit higher now, but again, I've been dieting. And we don't really see a trend where that number is kind of trending upwards. Yeah. So I'm good. I'm fine in that area.
Yeah.
Because the clinical range for this is less than 60. So yeah, we're still good. Yep. Now at the end of contest prep, we'll get it checked again and we'll see what that is. So that number may be a hell of a lot higher. But if it is, again, I've been dieting for a long period of time. So got to keep that in mind. Do you want to go over the thyroid globulin antibodies, or do you just not want to cover that?
Not really. I mean, the only thing I'll say with that is 9 times out of 10, you will never really see someone ever get that done. The only time that usually you'll have a physician actually recommend getting that done is if you do have Hashimoto's or some type of autoimmune and they're seeing a constant elevation in your TPO and it's hard to control even with medication. Then they'll kind of do that, and usually that's a certain type of protein in the body that they usually only check that for like tumor markers. Okay, so usually again it's something that's usually not checked unless they're suspicious of that kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, something that I do want to discuss is how to keep the thyroid as healthy as you can as you diet down, more specifically in a contest prep, because this is really important, especially for natural competitors out there. So some things that you can do to help at least bring the levels up as they start down regulating while you're in a calorie deficit are things like refeed days, doing 2 back-to-back, or maybe even 3 back-to-back. I mean, it really just depends. There's no right or wrong number of how many refeed days you need back-to-back. And it's all case by case, of course. Yep. Another thing is diet breaks. That's why it's important to implement these things, because as a natural, a lot of our levels downregulate. And then once that thyroid downregulates, it's going to be really, really hard to drop body fat. Yeah. So incorporating the refeeds, the diet breaks, that is the sole purpose of those things, to help bring levels back up. And if you're dieting for a long period of time, you need those things. You really do. Also, let's go in and let's talk about like some, pre-testing things, because Gillis and I have found some very interesting, information on, what you shouldn't do prior to getting your thyroid tested, because it can skew the data. And then it's all boiling down to a multivitamin. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that whenever, if you have a coach, or if you for yourself are deciding, watching this video, noticing a lot of these things are really kind of hitting home, or maybe progress is slow, or you're noticing a lot of these signs and symptoms, or maybe you had some lab panels and you went back and looked at it and see that they were maybe suboptimal, or maybe you didn't have a full panel, which is probably the more common thing you'll see if you go to a primary doctor, to be honest with you. A couple things you need to make sure that you're aware of in terms of going back in to get lab work done, right? So there's a couple of different things that you want to avoid to have an accurate reading of things. A lot of, some things that you'll see a lot of is that there's certain types of vitamin minerals that can actually interact with the way that your labs are being reading, right? So one of them being vitamin B7 or biotin, which, I see more of a prevalence, or we see more of a prevalence, where thyroid is more of a problem for women. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
For the most part?
Absolutely.
Again, biotin is often one of those vitamins that most women take because it's for your hair, skin, and nails, right?
Yeah.
So biotin can actually show a false reading with, or actually show that there is a high elevation of T3, T4, and it also a decrease in TSH levels. So taking a multivitamin, especially if you're a woman taking a women's multi, you'll always see biotin usually is in it. The other thing is if your iron is low, right, and you're taking an iron supplement, okay, if you're actually on thyroid medication already for having a clinically suboptimal or hypothyroidism, iron can stop the absorption of your medication working. So it's important that if you're taking a multivitamin or taking these specific types of supplements, avoid taking them around medication if you're already on medication. And if you're not on medication and you're getting, blood work done, making sure that you're also avoid taking things like biotin around the time, or at least 12 hours to 24 hours before going and get that blood work done.
Okay. Now let's talk supplementation. So things that we can supplement while we're in a contest prep or fat loss that can help at least keep thyroid in a somewhat healthy place as calories go down. Yeah. So, we know selenium is a good one. Iodine, or keeping iodine salt in your diet, that can definitely help instead of supplementing iodine.
And one of the things with that is that with both selenium and iodine, they're probably one of the most key vital minerals that help with thyroid health. But just like anything else, it's more commonly making sure that you're having not too little and not too much.
Yeah. Because
if you're already somebody that's clinically diagnosed with hypothyroidism, more is not better. Too much iodine will actually cause a worser problem with hyperthyroidism.
Yeah.
Okay. So making sure that you're within a good level of that. And again, like Tarryn said, the easiest way to incorporate that
salt
is just buy some damn 50-cent iodized salt. You don't ever really have to worry about anything else supplementing it. And then put that on your food.
And then also inositol.
Inositol. Yep.
Oh, inositol.
Yeah.
So what does that do? Because I know that does play into insulin, or it can help with insulin sensitivity.
Yeah. So inositol is also one of your B vitamins, like vitamin B5 or something like that, where it basically help improve TSH function. Okay. So if you have a high TSH, it could probably drop it a little bit. And it also helps with conversion factors too. So that'll actually kind of help with the function. Inositol is also often, you'll see that a lot of doctors will give inositol to someone that might be diagnosed with PCOS.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason for that is because there's some research that actually showed that it also improves with insulin sensitivity. Okay. Where,
I actually have some PCOS clients that I have on that.
Yeah, inositol is a good one to actually, to make sure. And just making sure it's the efficacy of dosage is there too.
Do you know the dosage off the top of your head?
Somewhere about between 300 to 600, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% familiar.
And then lastly, zinc. So what is it with zinc?
Zinc is another one. So it helps with the function of your improvement of TSH. Yeah.
Now, for the most part, because I know I take Opti Women. That's, the vitamin that I have. And it already has all of these things up in it.
Yep.
I guess the biggest thing is just really looking at, the dosage, making sure that the dosage is good. It's up to par. And if you have to maybe buy these supplements on the side to kind of help increase the dosage, do it.
Yeah, or you can always reach out to us if you're interested or unsure of what you should be getting, if you're in the market for looking for a good supplement that has everything in one place, or if you're just unsure of dosages, so where you're just not going out buying these things,
and spending all this money and it's just a waste.
Exactly. So diet always needs to be in check before you do that too.
Yeah, supplements are supplemental. They don't make or break you, but they can help, especially in this case with thyroid health, thyroid function.
Absolutely.
So that's it. We wrapped it up. Those are my lab panels. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys learned about the thyroid. If you got any questions, concerns, drop it down below.
I would like to also point out, I know Tarryn's wrapping this up, but I'm going to kind of give you guys just kind of a synopsis of what we're going to be talking about next. So the next thing that we will be actually dropping in the next couple weeks is doing very similar like we did for thyroid, but we're going to do a complete comprehensive female hormone panel too.
On me.
Yeah, and the reason that, well, obviously.
No, on Gillis.
Anyways, the reason that we're waiting, we didn't do this with the thyroid, is because we are going to wait till she's in her optimal phase of usually being in the luteal phase.
Yeah. Don't go too in depth on this now.
I'm not. I'm just giving a synopsis of that.
Okay.
And so be on the lookout for that too. And we're going to go in kind of a breakdown of optimal ranges and all of that stuff too.
And also we'll cover estrogen dominance.
Yeah.
How do you tell if you're estrogen dominant by just looking at your panels?
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys listened to this whole entire video. If not, you guys fucking missed out. But until next time, that's it. Any last words?
That's it. How about?
Okay.